Good morning, everybody. It is 9 o'clock. Happy Friday to everyone. We just heard Taylor Canoes talk about how warm it is going to be. No, not warm. Hot it is going to be. We're talking triple digits in some areas. Heat indices knocking on the door of 110 degrees. Very dangerous. Use your head, folks, before you head outside. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Be smart. Don't leave things in the vehicle that don't need to be there. There are cooling stations around our area, and the list of those can be found at our website, weareiowa.com. So just be smart as you're heading out the next couple of days.
And remember, we talked to the Animal Rescue League, as we always do on Friday morning. If you do have a pet and you do need to cool down with your pet, they are open as a cooling station, so you can bring your pet to the Animal Rescue League, and they will help you cool down and just try to beat this heat. The hottest time, I believe Taylor said, the hottest time of the day between 1 and 4 is when the really hot temperatures are going to be.
Absolutely.
So keep that in mind.
Well, we've been talking a lot of entertainment all morning long of various things leading up to, of course, the 4th of July. But let's continue on with the theme of entertainment as we check in with Professor Jeff Stein with today's Iowa Almanac, because there was a guy who enjoyed entertaining the crowds, right? But things didn't always go according to plan.
They never do they?
Well, you always hope so. You always hope you're well practiced and ready to go, but there's certain things in life you just aren't always prepared for.
Some of it is technology-based these days for us, but some of it had to do with, I don't know what this guy was thinking, but there are people who have somewhat odd or unique jobs, and we often see them profiled on television. Well, Henry Rowland was someone with a rather odd job. He climbed buildings in the 1920s and 1930s. Didn't use a ladder, just climbed the buildings to try to get to the top. And he would travel the country to entertain audiences who would watch his antics. This is what passed for entertainment before TV came along, I guess. In August of 1924, Henry Rowland and his wife Anna and their small daughter Helen were traveling across the state of Iowa. And Henry would perform and collect donations that would cover their living expenses. They'd just pull up into town. He'd climb the tallest building. People would toss money at him, and that's what they used to live on.
Wow.
It's not something I would recommend that you try at home. They found themselves in Bloomfield in southeastern Iowa, and Henry found the Davis County Courthouse there irresistible because of its unique architecture. Now, back then, of course, courthouse squares and main streets were hubs of small-town activity, so it was no surprise that several hundred people gathered to watch Henry Rowland climb the outside of the Davis County Courthouse. And all went well until he reached the cornice. He lost his footing, and he fell to the sidewalk below, 35 feet, more than 3 stories. He broke his left hip, and then there were other injuries, of course, as well. Doctors said he would never climb again. And, in fact, he spent 5 weeks recovering in a hospital in nearby Ottumwa. But they didn't call him the human fly for nothing. He recovered, and he returned to the entertainment circuit. While he was gaining fame, though, as his career, if you would call it that, progressed, there was still something missing in Henry Rowland's life. So now, fast forward to June of 1932, Henry was in northern Missouri and decided to cross the state line to tackle that courthouse that defeated him in Bloomfield one more time. Now, that earlier fall that I mentioned left him with one leg shorter than the other, and his left arm never fully recovered. So just imagine that's the situation, and he was still climbing buildings. Despite those limitations, on June 29th of 1932, Henry Rowland flawlessly climbed the Davis County Courthouse from the ground to the top in less than 12 minutes. And then to prove he was there, he put his cap on the head of the blind justice statue that stood atop the clock tower. There is an image alone. Sadly, 5 years later, at the age of 43, he died, falling from a trapeze more than 60 feet above the ground in Tennessee.
Oh, my gosh.
So, literally, he died while performing. The Davis County Courthouse, though, it beat him once, but Henry Rowland got his revenge 8 years later when he climbed that building in Bloomfield on this date in 1932. And again, don't try this on your own.
It's kind of a real-life Spider-Man doing all those antics. But I guess if you think of some of the greats, Evel Knievel, and they didn't always land the way
right
they wanted
way.
to.
Yeah. Anniversary of, speaking of Evel Knievel, his big crash at Caesar's Palace, and someone else attempting that jump is coming up here too. But a guy like that, you said his arm never fully recovered. You think if you're climbing buildings, you'd want to have the strength of both arms to hang on, wouldn't you?
And of course, being able to climb in an even way, but one leg shorter than the other. I mean, the adaptations that he made to continue, I guess, what he knew, his career, but always dangerous, and literally no more so than being 6 stories above the ground on a trapeze with no net. And we used to see these into the 80s and 90s. You'd see people climbing buildings, or the Wallendas across high wire. And another similar stunt by a family member not long ago. And as you mentioned, somebody's going to try to do what Evel Knievel couldn't in 1967 at Caesar's Palace soon. So they are a little more adventurous than I am. I'm going to sit in an air-conditioned radio studio today. There will be no climbing of ladders, much less building.
Yeah, but we saw the crowd that was gathered in that one picture. Massive amounts of people watching this.
And throwing money at him. I love it.
It's in the day when radio was very new. There was no television.
That's
and
true,
the word gets passed up and down the street. There's some fool climbing the courthouse. You got to come see this. And sure enough.
Because he might fall off, and that'd be really entertaining.
And then when he did fall off, all that did was fuel the fire for the next time he was going to crawl up the side of that building.
And we talk about how kind of crazy this is, but I'm sure it's the case for many people, whether in athletics or anything, where if you have a little unfinished business, maybe you lost by, just half a car length at the track. It's like, I want to come back at this track and I want to win. I'm going to climb this building. Well, he did.
He did it.
Well, good job out of him.
Go. And it happened right here in the great state of Iowa.
So people want to go back and revisit what we talked about here this morning. What's the best way to do that?
You can't believe anybody was this crazy in 1932. You can go to iowaalmanac.com. The whole story is right there, iowaalmanac.com.
All right. Try to stay cool this afternoon and this weekend, Jeff, and then we will talk to you Monday morning.
Be safe.
All right. Thank you, buddy. It is 7 minutes past 9 o'clock right now, and coming up on the program, we have a very special treat.